Oh my gosh, I am totally freaking out. My application to CAG, College of Heaven and Earth, that's right, I said College of Heaven and Earth, is due in like 10 minutes. I've been preparing this my whole life, and sure, I've never got a full night's rest, but that's totally okay. Because as soon as I'm accepted, I'll have everything to show for it. We all know these people, right? The overachievers in today's society. We often place them up on this pedestal, but we'll never measure up to all the great things that they do. And this today has made society sad. Over 18.8 million of us are depressed because we can't meet up to the standards and expectations of day-to-day life. We have a wonderful way of measuring the human called the resume, highlighting our education, community service efforts, and awards and achievements. I believe in no way could ink on paper give any of us justice. And when all is said and done, do you really think it'll come down to a piece of paper? Or will it be about the time we are given, our reactions, and the everlasting impacts? So toss that resume away. Time, which is passing this moment as we speak. The hourglass has turned and the grains of sand are falling through. How much time do you have to work with? Oh, I see, really busy. Lots of extracurriculars. Maybe we can just finish this some other time. Seriously? Denied. How often do we find ourselves complaining so much about what we have to do that the things we signed up for are somehow imposing upon our own busy lives? Last I checked, we're all given the exact same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, down to the very second. It's all just defined by what we value. A professor once stood in front of the class with an empty glass jar. He filled the jar to the rim with golf balls and he asked the class, "Is the jar full?" The class replied, "Yes." He then took a bag of pebbles and filled the jar completely to the rim and asked the class, "Now is the jar full?" The class replied, "Well, yes." He then took a bag of sand and filled it to the jar to the very rim as it trickled through all the open spaces and asked the class, "Now is the jar full?" They were sure now. The jar was completely full. He then took the glass of water sitting on his desk and poured it into the jar as all the items inside shifted and filled it completely to the rim. He informed the class that, yes, now the jar was completely full. He explained to them that the golf balls represent the most important things in our lives. We must prioritize them and do them first, because they won't fit into the jar if we filled it with sand to begin with. A student raised his hand and asked, "Well, what does the water represent?" "It's a liquid." The professor laughed and he replied, "Well, that just goes to show, no matter how packed and full your schedule may seem, you always have room for a couple of drinks with your friends." Accepted. Now, second, our reactions. This part can get a little bit stressful. We have to get all of this onto paper. So where should we begin? Community service? Well, I read to students twice a week at the public schools, feed the soup kitchen once a month, and pick up garbage at local churches every other Wednesday. God bless! Are you kidding me? Denied. How often do we see ourselves and others doing these volunteer efforts out of the goodness of our hearts only to put it on a piece of paper, send it away to college, and get money in return? No wonder these things are stressing us out. We're doing them for all the wrong reasons. If we actually understood the importance and meaning behind these actions, it wouldn't just be a task on a list to complete. It would be part of our lives. A soldier had one last connection flight till he was returning home from the war. He called to inform his parents on his whereabouts, but he had a favor to ask them. "Mom, Dad, I have a friend. He's lost one arm and one leg in fighting, and he needs a place to live. Can he live with us?" The parents replied, "Well, son, we'd love to meet him, but I just don't think he can stay here." He said, "No, I want him to live with us. I need him to live with us." And the father finally said, "Look, son, you don't understand the kind of burden this handicap's going to impose upon our lives, and we just don't have time for that. It will only interfere." The soldier then hung up the phone, and the parents didn't hear from him again. Then, days later, the call came. "Your son has committed suicide." They needed to identify the body at the local city morgue. As they entered that morgue, to their horror, they discovered something they never knew about their son, as he lay there on that body table with only one arm and one leg. You can never get credit or catch a break for taking care of a handicapped person that lived in your home. It would just be something you'd have to do. So too often, they and we choose the wrong reaction. The band Cartel sings a song further illustrating this tragedy in society, as it tells in the first verses of a young child dying at birth and the broken-hearted father, a young teenager taking a turn too quickly and losing his life that day, and a middle-aged man diagnosed with severe cancer, leaving his wife and children completely alone. The second verse then sings of a young child completely ignored by his business-oriented father, a young teenager who feels no one cares about his dreams, so he speeds off one day too quickly, never planning on returning home, and a middle-aged man who feels everything in his life is merely based upon principle, so he up and leaves his wife and children completely alone. The chorus then sings, "We're wasted. We are all so wasted." Have you ever lost a loved one? I have. And it shouldn't take that lesson of death and losing them for us to understand that the time we spent with them was never wasted, but almost timeless moments. Accepted. Now last, and most importantly, the everlasting impacts, the meaning behind every single action that we take. I was once this crazed overachiever, obsessed with doing everything in this world. I believed if I never, ever, ever gave up, all my dreams really could come true. And I worked so hard at all that I did. But time after time, when the final result would be posted, I was again and again denied, denied, denied. That feeling of failure hits you like a ton of bricks. A pageant I thought I could win the crown for, I didn't even make the first cut in auditions. It was humiliating. I had worked so hard and on paper had absolutely nothing to show for it. I felt I had wasted so much time. I then confronted my mother asking, why am I such a failure? My mother sadly smiled and then sat me down and told me a story that changed my perspective. Of two young girls that during their years they should have been in high school like I was, were in a Nazi concentration camp, put into suffering. One of the sisters saw it exactly for what it was, a block of her life taken away and wasted. But the other tried to take every positive impact that she could from each moment that passed her by. At one point, they were stricken with fleas so badly, they were scratching their own skin off and bleeding. And as they bowed their heads to pray that night, the positive sister said, "Thank you, God, for these fleas." Her sister didn't understand. Had she gone insane? How could she thank God for this? This is awful. This is suffering. She explained, "Don't you see? Because of these fleas, the soldiers were no longer choose us to rape, and we are protected, accepted." In that moment, I realized just how completely selfish I was being, that the universe wasn't required to be in tune with human ambition, nor would it ever be. And that my failures had defined me more than any achievement I'd gotten in my entire life. And when it came down to it, I wouldn't have handed a piece of paper to show who I was. It would be the character within me that defined my spirit. And I felt so powerful. What's going to happen when society realizes this? Once they start denying the money we make and the awards we receive, and start accepting our failures, flaws, and our timeless moments, we will all be completely empowered. To the girl who rehearsed for months and will never wear a crown, you're the stars up in the sky. To the boy who practiced for weeks and will never make the cut on the team, you're a mountain peak up high. To all of us who never have been and never will be quite good enough, hey, we made it. We are the world's greatest. So who deserves this pedestal? Is it the credible or the incredible? Let's be human beings, because when all is said and done, will it really come down to a piece of paper?